Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about minerals. Make sure that you read the lab handout and get the basic definitions of what a primary and secondary mineral is, and also to learn all of the macro and micronutrients that we would find in these minerals. So that could come up in a test in the near future where you'd have to be able to identify which plant nutrients are macronutrients and which ones are micronutrients, or you may just need to list the essential plant nutrients that we can find in minerals. All right, so let's get started. Our very first mineral from the box is called hematite. I've seen lots of different versions of this. Actually, it can be shined up. Some of them are very glossy looking and gray. You can find them in gift stores and stuff like that. Sometimes they make necklaces out of them. But what's important about this one is that it kind of shows the iron oxides that you can find in hematite. And sometimes these iron oxides are what coat clays. So back down in Alabama, where I always talk about the clays down there, they're red. And a lot of that is due to the iron oxides that come off of minerals that coat something called kaolinite, which is a secondary mineral. We don't have kaolinite in the box here, but I hope to show it in class so that you can kind of get a good look at it. All right, so that's hematite, and one of the important things to know about it, it's a secondary mineral. And of course, since it has iron oxides on it, the plant nutrient that's most commonly associated with it is iron. All right, our next specimen is something that you may have seen before. Again, often sold in gift shops. This is called pyrite, but we often hear it called fool's gold. It does kind of have a shiny gold metallic look to it. However, it's not like a true yellow gold. It's more of a green gold to it. I suppose some people, if they had found pyrite, might have thought that they had found gold, but this is definitely not gold. All right, so pyrite is made up of iron sulfate, and so we have two plant nutrients that we can find from there. That is iron and then sulfur. So both of those could be considered good for soil. However, when we find this mineral in soil, it tends to acidify soil. The sulfate in it becomes oxidized, and so it then becomes sulfuric acid in the soil, and generally is not very good for soil conditions. Our next one is graphite, and honestly, to be truthful with you, I would not have put this in the box. It just came with the boxes of minerals that I bought. Graphite is really, it's just carbon. Plants do not obtain carbon through graphite. This really has no use in the soil as far as fertility goes. It's interesting to see graphite. I guess you probably have come across it before, graphite pencils and that sort of thing. You can write with this mineral. If you tried to scratch a piece of paper, it will leave a mark. But otherwise, it's particularly useless for our class. It doesn't really do anything for soil fertility. So don't worry too much about this one. It does not add carbon to the soil. Our next one is gypsum, which actually was in our last box, which is a box of rocks. And gypsum is calcium sulfate. So we have calcium that comes from this mineral and sulfate. It can be used as a liming material, which means it can raise the pH of the soil, which could be considered a good thing. But in this case, we're considering it a mineral. So depending, I got these boxes from the same company. Depending on how you look at it, it could be considered a rock or it can be considered a mineral. So this is one kind of unique mineral from this box that we also saw in the last box. All right, our next one is halite, number 5. And halite is just rock salt. That's all it is. It's sodium chloride. Don't lick it, but if you did lick it, it would taste like salt. That's all it is. Now, it can come in lots of different colors because of all of the impurities that you can find where this was created. So whatever, a salty lake or what used to be part of the ocean, whatever impurities there gave it its color. We don't actually consider this to be something good or healthy in soil. If this were to break down in the soil, it does give some sodium, but it gives a lot of chloride, and we know that that doesn't really help soil situations very much. Our next one is number 6, which is calcite, calcium carbonate. This is the mineral that makes up limestone. So calcium carbonate is something that can be very healthy for the soil. Soils do need calcium. It does raise the pH to where plants can grow better, and calcium is a macronutrient that plants need to survive. What's kind of unique about it, other than it creates limestone and marble, which is the metamorphic version of limestone, is that if we were to drop acid on this, I try not to do that with my samples, but if I were to put some acid on this sample, it would actually dissolve. And what we would get from it is an effervescence or bubbling appearance. That bubbles that come off of it are actually carbon dioxide, and they're just released into the air. So when acid rain hits this, whether it's in the soil or it's on the surface, maybe a statue or part of pavement or something like that, is that it dissolves and leaves a calcium salt behind and effervesces out carbon dioxide. So the carbonate portion goes away. It can come in lots of different colors, just like limestone can. Number 7 is selenite. And what's kind of unique about this is it almost has a glass appearance. You can see my fingers through the mineral. And it is made of the same chemical composition as our gypsum. So it's just another different version of gypsum. It has the same chemical compound as gypsum does, but in its formation process we get to this nice crystalline structure, and we get this really cool glass-like appearance. So everything I said about gypsum is true for selenite as well. A really important mineral in soil when it comes to fertility is number 8, which is apatite. So if you look at the chemical formula for apatite, it has, at least for macronutrients or important nutrients for plants, calcium and phosphorus in it. Almost all of the phosphorus that we find in soil originated from something like apatite. Now it might have gone through and become an organic material at some point, part of a plant, but the actual phosphorus originated from a mineral like apatite. So very important. I don't have you identify the minerals for the virtual lab. This one has kind of a green appearance, and we do have one coming up, number 11, that also has a green appearance. This one has more of kind of an emerald green look to it. All right, our next one is number 9. Get a good shot here. And number 9 is quartz. Now, quartz doesn't actually, it's silicon dioxide, and it doesn't really give us any minerals for plants. However, it's the most common mineral found in soil. So when you see any sand particles, it's just quartz. And this quartz can have this hexagonal kind of a crystalline form to it. This doesn't have it, but if we broke off chips of it and put it under a microscope, we might actually see that. So we're not getting actually any nutrients from quartz at all, but we find it as being a very, very common mineral found in nearly all soils. Another cool mineral here. This one is muscovite, and if you look at it, it has a really shiny appearance, and it will flake. You can actually even break off flakes of this. Try not to do that with the samples that you have. And it almost looks like a glitter effect. I've actually seen this in creeks where this stuff has weathered, and the sediment down at the bottom of the creek actually glitters. And it's all of this muscovite. So in certain areas you can find this. I actually found a piece of muscovite, not muscovite, but a stone that had muscovite in it at my cabin last weekend. So that was kind of cool. This one has a lot of potassium in it. So when we find soils that have a lot of muscovite in the soil, usually it's really high in potassium, which is a macronutrient. Now there are other type of micas. This is considered a mica. There's one called biotite, which I don't have a specimen of. And that would look like this, but black. It would still have kind of that glittery appearance to it, but it would be black. And that would be because of the iron that it contained. But I don't have a good sample of that. Number 11 is the other green mineral that we were talking about, and this is olivine. It is one that can provide plant nutrients. It does have magnesium in it, and magnesium and calcium can be liming agents, which means it can bring up the pH of a soil. So it could potentially be used for that. It also has some iron in it, and that iron could be used by plants as well. So both the magnesium and the iron are plant nutrients that can be derived from this mineral. And our last one, I don't know if this is the best sample I've seen out of all the boxes, but this is microcline. And it's similar to orthoclase. That's how I learned it when I was in school. And it has this pink appearance, though it can come in different colors. It's very common to be in this pink appearance. In fact, the last time I actually used some lawn fertilizer, I don't use a lot of that, but the last time I used some lawn fertilizer, I found little nuggets of pink in it, and I knew that that was orthoclase or microcline. And this is a really good source of potassium. So we'll use this to actually fertilize, we'll chop it up, grind it up, and use it to fertilize our soil for potassium. All right, so that's pretty much it from the box of minerals. We'll talk a little bit about it in class, but I will also upload some pictures of these minerals. So if you don't take home a box of minerals, you can kind of look at them as you study. And yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit more in class.